Hello boys, how are you today? Now today we're going to have a video about reading time. Fine. Now today's reading selection is Forests on Fire. Now can this remind you of something that I think is still happening in a country? What country is that? Can you make a guess? Yeah, Australia. That's right. Fine. Now, before we begin, in this reading selection, we're going to discuss, some reading strategies, which is ask and answer questions, compare and contrast, expository texts, and finally, context clues. Fine. We are going to begin with reading the essential question. Fine. Now, what changes in the environment affect living things? So, what changes in the environment affect living things? Now, I want you to pause the video for 30 or 40 seconds and think of a response to this essential question. Okay. Now, the genre, which means, as I told you in the last video, the type, the literary type, what type of story or what type of reading are we going to have? Is it a fantasy? Is it an informational text? Okay. Now, the genre for today is expository text. Now, the title is Forests on Fire. Let's begin. A few years ago, several red squirrels, an endangered species, had a temporary home at the Phoenix Zoo. Now, why did we use the two dashes? Of course, to give extra information about something. Okay? So, a few years ago, several red squirrels, an endangered species, had a temporary home at the Phoenix Zoo, rescued from a ravaging wildfire that had already destroyed thousands of acres of land. The squirrels were waiting for the fire to be extinguished before being returned to the wild. So the squirrels were taken to a zoo until the fire is extinguished. Now, who can get me a synonym for the word extinguished? And it begins with P. And actually, it is a phrasal verb. Okay, think about it. Okay, forest fires are part of nature. So it is important for us to understand not only how to fight fires, but also why they occur. Also, who can get us a synonym for the word occur? And what I have in mind begins with H. Very nice. And you can notice phrases like not only, but also. They come together, right, all the time. They are called correlatives in English. Correlatives, which means phrases that most of the time come together. Okay, destructive and productive. Like rainstorms, wildfires are a force of nature. Now, the word like here is a signal that there is a comparison here, which is telling similarities between two things. However, is another signal that is telling us that another thing will be used, which is contrast. Fine. like contrast, is telling how two things are different. However, unlike rainstorms, wildfires are almost always destructive. Fine? They are all the time destroying things. They are destructive. They consume everything in their way, including plants, trees, and animals. Sometimes they take human lives and homes as well. Like a big storm, the destructive power of wildfires is terrifying. On the other hand, naturally occurring wildfires are also productive forces. Oh, can a fire be productive? Let's discover how this can be. Whether their flames race through a forest, a prairie, or acres of brush, these fires produce necessary changes in their environment. Like rain, they can allow new life to flourish. Benefits of naturally occurring wildfires. A naturally occurring wildfire, sometimes called a forest fire, happens without any human cause. Natural. Maybe caused by lightning. 3 factors must be present for one to burn. These include fuel, such as dry grasses, oxygen, which is in our atmosphere, and a heat source to ignite the fuel. Ignite means, cause something to burn. A lightning strike usually sparks a naturally occurring wildfire. The danger of fire is highest during a drought, when an area has experienced little rain. And this is a context clue. Maybe if you don't know what the word drought means, the following phrase will tell you, right? Yeah, you must use this a lot. Context clues are very important while you are reading. Wildfires have happened throughout history, and they help to regenerate Earth and its species. When vegetation decays, which means rot, become spoiled, wildfires clear it away so that new plant life can grow. So this is one of the benefits of natural fires, forest fires. Can you imagine? There are benefits for forest fires. Okay. Fire also releases nutrients, which means, food or something, back into the soil, making it more fertile. Now, when a land is fertile, it's very good for growing plants. And by eliminating leafy canopies of mature trees, fire allows nourishing sunlight to reach a forest floor. Often, this new life will be better adapted to fire than what existed before. Some species will have fire-resistant roots, leaves, or bark. And bark is the outside cover of a tree stem. Fine. Other species will actually depend on fire to reproduce and thrive. Thrive means what? Become successful in life. This is the general meaning. But here it can mean to live, to reproduce, etc. Now, a headline: stability and diversity. Among its benefits, fire promotes stability, which means balance. By eliminating invasive species that can take over an area, fire encourages the healthy growth of a region's own vegetation. At the same time, fire promotes diversity. Now, diversity means having more than one kind of species, having many species. It ensures that plant life will exist at different stages of development. For example, a forest recently struck by fire will have new seedlings. Not far away, in a forest struck by fire 20 years earlier, there may be small trees. And nearby, there may be a forest of mature trees untouched by fire for years. These variations in plant life, which means these differences in plant life, provide food and habitats for different kinds of insects, birds and mammals. Woodpeckers eat insects in burned out trees. Sparrows depend on seeds for food. Predators such as foxes are drawn by small prey. Can you spell this word and think of a synonym? Think of a homophone that, Forests eat different stages, attract a diversity of animals to a region. So these are some benefits of natural fires that happen in a forest. The human factor. This is a headline. Although wildfires have benefits, they also are feared and misunderstood. As a result, our government tried to suppress them, which means try to stop them completely through the 20th century. This policy had a negative impact, which means had a negative effect, had a negative influence on the environment. The gradual buildup of decayed vegetation provided more fuel to feed fires. Consequently, wildfires became noticeably fiercer. Now, noticeably means clearly, and fierce means very wild, very strong. More recently, the government has used two different strategies to manage wildfires. One is to try to limit fires before they burn out of control. The other is to set small prescribed fires to reduce the amount of fuel in the environment. Prescribed means done on purpose here. Hopefully, the danger of catastrophic fires is now receding, which means diminishing, becoming less. Unfortunately, human carelessness, such as a campfire left to smolder, now having a campfire and not making sure that the fire is put out, also can start a fire. While a natural or prescribed wildfire can be beneficial, this is not true of fires that result from malice or mistakes. Malice is when you want to harm intentionally, on purpose. These happen at times and places that may cause irreparable damage to plant, animal, and human life. Irreparable means can never be repaired. Fires cannot control themselves, so humans will always have to figure out how best to handle them. Okay, so the reading selection points out that there are two kinds of fires. The first one is natural fires. The second one is, fires made by humans. Also, the reading selection is telling us about benefits of natural fires, right? How it can cause stability and diversity, and how such fires can renew life in a forest. Now, we are going to discuss some comprehension strategies. The first one is ask and answer questions. Now, while reading, you got to ask yourself questions and try to answer them. Now, if you can't find an answer, you got to reread. Fine, this can make you understand a reading selection the best way out there. And you have to notice how compare and contrast is done in a reading passage. Now, we spoke about the word like, unlike, however, on the other hand. Now, these are phrases that can, point out, compare, and contrast. Now, what we read is an expository text. It gives information. It gives facts, examples, and explanations. And it may include photos and graphs. So these are the characteristics or the features of expository texts. Sorry. And it is very important with all kinds or genres of reading to use context clues, because it is going to be a big waste of time to go back to a dictionary whenever you have a word that is unfamiliar. And context clues can be to find a synonym of the word, to find a definition, to find an example, to find an antonym, and all these. Okay, boys. Now this is it for today's reading time. Thank you very much for your time. And you have a small homework, which is find 4 words or phrases that are used to start a comparison or a contrast. Fine, this is number 1. And number 2, find 3 context clues that can help you in figuring out the meaning of unfamiliar words. Okay, thank you for your time. I'll see you the next video, hopefully. Bye-bye.